Hello everyone, so we want to talk about planning objections for a second in terms of any places being built, and the perfect example at the moment is Metrolink. Now, I'd be lucky to ever see Metrolink ever exist because they haven't even started digging yet. They took probably 20 years to get to this point when they have all the planning and all that done. It cost 100 billions of euros. God only knows how much. But yeah, so people are objecting to that in one area of Dublin. Some of the Westons, I think it's about 20 Westons, have put an objection and there's a judicial review, etc. And obviously that's going to delay the project even more. So we're talking about maybe 2-3 years extra added on maybe to it before the review is done and etc. Even though the review might say, yeah, it's okay to go ahead. But I suppose in those cases of in Cavan, I get into Cavan particularly now in a second. But I suppose the question is, everybody should have the right, of course, to object, say, to a house being built or something being done. We've seen our good friends in the Green Party do that before. Catherine Martin, the former Minister for Media, and her husband objected. They voted for the right to housing and then they objected to housing. It makes sense, but sure, look at. But yeah, so it's absolutely insane, really, when you think about it that time. But it is why people should have the right to object. Particularly if you own your house, you should have the right to object if something's being built beside it. Or if you don't agree with it, or if it's in the public interest and you don't think it's right, you should have the right. But of course, at the same time too, there's a lot of this going on. It takes far too long for objections to be dealt with and to be looked at. Like it takes years. Like take for example, Tesco car that was supposed to be a big Tesco in Cavan, a big huge Tesco, like a shopping centre, because Cavan doesn't have one pretty much. So the pretty much what you have in Enniskillen, a big huge Tesco version of that. And obviously planning objections, planning stuff and all that took years. Like we're talking about this since I was a child and we're still here and hasn't been built yet. But yeah, so this has still been talked about, and obviously it was given the green light there in the summertime to go ahead and to proceed with the building. But then a environmental group raised objections due to environmental concerns. And we're not further on, and that was in probably June or July this year, and nothing has been said since then, pretty much. So I don't know what's the story. I presume there's still a review of what's going on. I presume that's what's happening. But what I'm trying to say is it needs to be dealt with more quicker. Maybe they have legitimate points. Even take for example, they're talking about building on an extension to Cavan General Hospital. And there's one person in Cavan who's well known for objecting to anything. I think if you even build anything at all, people object to it because he would object to it. But there is some people that just will object to it just to get money, and unfortunately that's just a thing too. The people want a financial contribution to drop their claim. There's been many times over the years I've heard about things like that. And then if we just take for example another incident in Cavan is the N3 up by Virginia. Now for donkey's years, since God was a Gosson at this stage, excuse my language, but quite literally that's how long they've been discussing this. About a bypass in Virginia. And they talked about this like for the last 700 years at this stage, because it just keeps going. There's never an end in sight. Nothing has been built yet, but there's still like to hear the councillors. You think it started right now, right here, and it's going to be done tomorrow morning. The way to hear some of them talk about. But yeah, it needs to be done. Of course, it needs to be done. But then you need to bypass Cavan Town. So it's just we're going to have to bypass everything at this time. But yeah, no. When I probably never see that, to be totally honest with you. The same as many things. But again, the main thing is to objections. People are objecting to it. And of course, the government have bought a lot of land of people to build in the area, to build through fields, etc., to make the bypass. So they bought a lot of territory, and some people won't sell, and they're looking for more money, and it's just that whole shebang. And then obviously people objecting due to environmental concerns, and other people object for other things, and then not to mention the planning is just atrocious. But yeah, it's the same with nearly everything in this country. But what I'm trying to say is people should have the right to object, of course. But some claims, like for example, some people that are making objections, it's totally nonsense. It's really just trying to get money out of the system, or even if it's private people. I've heard too many times of people building their own houses, and on board Panola too. The people that give planning permission, they're useless people too. Because they sent horrible letters out to people that want to build their own house to get planning permission, and Bord Panola disagrees with them and sends horrible letters out saying, "Oh, this is wrong. You shouldn't do that, and you shouldn't have the right." I've heard many times about young people or people building their own house, and on Bord Panola, not even the local authorities will come out and say, "Oh, you should not have the right to have a house like off a main road and stuff like that. You shouldn't have a connection to the main road." I've heard of that bullshit before. that on Bolpanola was like, oh yeah, you can't have a house directly on the main road, a road leading to the main road. Like, they're making up some nonsense as they go along in some cases. But yeah, so some of it is absolutely nonsense in terms of them kind of objections and stuff. But some of them are legitimate in terms of environmental concerns. People do have some genuine concern in terms of that. And then maybe in some instance, if you live beside it, you have genuine concern that it could be habit, disturb your peace, etc., etc. But there is instances, as I say, there's somebody in Cavan that's well known for objecting to literally anything. I could build a rocket ship out in the middle of nowhere, and he would object to it. Because again, these people get a lot of money from objecting, because eventually, the people who are building the thing will say, eventually, look at how much do you want to drop the claim and be done with it. Because again, these things take donkey's years to go through. Like, as I say with Metro, like, that's the judicial review. It's different than an only just basic thing. So that's going to take long, and it's going to cost the state a lot more, of course. But even just an only objection and stuff, it takes a lot of time to go through it. Like, even just speaking about, there was an issue one time with a house. The person got planning permission for a hen house out the back of his house. And long story short, they had it built and all, and then one of the neighbours objected to it, that it was in his way of his back garden. And it went on for about, must be 4 or 5 years, it went on back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth, and back and forth. And it was just, no one was getting anywhere, because basically just going, it just never stopped. But yeah, eventually, because obviously he was granted the planning permission first, though the council granted them the planning permission to put the hen house there. But the neighbours didn't object in time and stuff like that. They didn't put in because the thing was built and then they objected to it. When the thing was built, if that makes any sense. Like, you should object before it's built. And particularly this fellow did send the plans to his neighbours, in fairness, so he had his backup, that he did notify them that, yeah, this is going up, and even though it's big enough, it's a big enough place. The neighbours. So basically, it took about 5 years, I think it was, for the claim to be finally dropped, because pretty much he hadn't a leg to stand on the other person that objected to it. But what I'm trying to say, that took a lot of time, just back and forth and back and forth. And especially because the man too, it wasn't known, I suppose he would tell you himself, that they could have come and took his hen house, even though he had planning permission and stuff. If the person did win that case, they would have to take down the hen house and be out loads of money in doing it. Even though he done everything right, pretty much. If that makes any sense. That's just one case. There's many other cases of doing stuff absolutely ridiculous. There was one time somebody wanted to plant, I think it was a flower bed in between somebody else's house. Like a big flower bed. It wasn't like a small flower bed, but they had to get planning permission for it, because it was some kind of thing, like it was kind of structure and stuff. But that's a long story. That one, that's a few years ago. But what I'm trying to say, the objection system needs to be looked at a bit for objecting to things, because it does hold back projects, particularly public projects that are necessary for the society, for Irish society. As I say, Metrolink, it's very necessary. We're the only country in Europe that doesn't have some kind of underground going out to the airport and things. It would be great. I'm sure people would agree. Everybody would agree. It's something that would be beneficial to the state and beneficial for every citizen of this country to have that facility. Even as I say, the N3 bypass going through Virginia, it would be very necessary for the state, for Cavan and for the West of Ireland to have something like that. It would increase the traffic flow, and of course, people get to Dublin a bit quicker than going through Virginia. And then the last by making the Tesco car park and in Dublin, the Tesco Shoppers Edge, it would make a lot of jobs. It would probably have a lot more good effect on the economy, the Cavan local economy. And it would probably be good assets to the county. It would, as I say, it would create a lot of jobs, a lot of money. But again, you have to kind of balance it, but it's hard to get the balance. But anyway, nobody knows to take. Subscribe for more and bye.